Firstly, thanks everyone for taking the time out of the day to come and join us on another Get a Fresh Mindset webinar. And the White Jacket Effect is committed to causing an increase in the performance of individuals in the hospitality industry and making it a more healthier place to work. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Amber Dunsford, the founder of the White Jacket Effect. So Amber, welcome and thanks very much.
Hello, everyone. Well, I'd like to start by introducing our panel guests. Luke Mangan, I don't know you personally, but you are a leading Australian chef, and you've opened up many restaurants all across the world. You're also influencing the hospitality industry in sea and in the air with Virgin Australia and P&O Cruises. Plus you're the co-founder of Australia's largest hospitality awards, Appetite for Excellence. So it's wonderful to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Can't wait till the planes start flying and the cruise ships start sailing again.
Yes, yeah, getting there. And Sean McCarthy, you are a Sydney chef with fantastic culinary knowledge and technique. You've worked in some of the best restaurants in Europe and Australia, and you're currently head chef of the catering company in Sydney. Mm-hmm. I know that everyone who works underneath you really respects you and knows you as a fair and fun and inspiring leader. And it's really great to have you on the call today.
Thank you, Amber. They're very kind words, and I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. And Laura. A few years ago, you were asked to accept an internship at the Fat Duck in Bray. What an exciting time that must have been. And after that, you continued to climb the ladder by working in a few other Michelin-starred restaurants in London. Back in Sydney now, I have come to know you, and I think you're one to watch. You're certainly a leader in this industry, and we really welcome you on board this call as well.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I've never had someone say that. Great to be here though. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amber Kaba. About a year ago, just over a year ago, I founded the White Jacket Effect, and it was to empower the hospitality industry to deal with the pressures that we face effectively. A year on from then, I'm really proud to be launching our new online course. It's really powerful, and it's about mindset, performance, and it gives us new foundations to work from in the hospitality industry. So in saying that, I'd really like to introduce you to the author of our course, Sam McLennan.
Thank you, Amber. Oh, okay.
Sam, you've worked globally in the area of mindset and human performance. We're very lucky to have you on the team at White Jacket Effect. For a number of years, you worked with the Salvation Army and the Department of Health and Human Services. And as a high performance coach, your leadership in professional development is really outstanding. So thank you for your contribution to the hospitality industry.
Thank you. Please excuse my technical proficiency. We can see that we've got Luke and Sean being named as Sam on their screen. So firstly, I apologise for that. And also,
all good.
So we'll endeavour to work on that next time.
Sam,
Now,
that's actually my initials, so I'm fine with that.
Oh, great! Okay, good.
Well.
I like that you're a Mick as well. You know, we're a tight clan.
That's right.
And well, thanks very much, Amber. And you know, I've been teaching and educating my whole life. You know, I remember when I was in Cubs, like way back when I was a wee little nipper, and yeah, I made it up through the Cubs. You know, you had to get these badges on your arm. You get like a first aid badge and a sailing badge and a knots badge. And I love to jump in and learn and then pass on that information to others. So I quickly went up the ranks in Cubs and was teaching others. And my mother was a teacher. And so I really learnt a lot from the way how she taught me about how to teach people. And she was, you know, really well respected in the schools that she taught in. And it's really just resonated with me my whole life to teach a whole range of different topics. And I've always been a firm believer of you know, throwing myself in the deep end. And it's had both positive and negative impacts on me and my mindset and my performance and my mental health. And, you know, I've had depression, I've had anxiety, I've had thoughts of, you know, committing suicide, and I got through it. And when I'm teaching people, I don't believe I can teach anyone without having that experience myself. Otherwise, I feel that I can't teach from the textbooks or from what someone else has told me. I can only teach from my experience, and I can only comment when I've got experience on things. And so over the years of working with people that have mental health issues or mental illnesses, and, you know, firstly, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not classified as a psychologist or a psychotherapist or any of those titles, and I do not work in the area of mental illness. I work in the area of mental health and performance and leadership development, and I leave the mental illnesses up to those professionals, you know, their experience in those areas. But what I work with is the areas where I've had experience and breakthroughs in my own transformation about taking people to the next level in their lives and really closing the gap between the person that they are now and the person deep down that they know themselves to be. So I love doing it. You know, I love assisting people to transform. I'm always continuously looking at myself and how I'm performing, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's a real pleasure to be here. I love what the hospitality industry stands for. I love what the leaders stand for, and the people that are within the industry with how much creativity they have and how much thirst and vigour they have for the industry. And if we didn't have that, then there'd be no way that there'd be the quality of produce coming out of it. You know, it comes from a place of love. And so the course that's been written is all about bringing back the love. Because with love, you can conquer anything. Any team can perform, and it can perform exponentially when there's love there between each other. And it makes life so much easier when there's love everywhere. So the big question is, you know, how can we bring that love back? So I'd love to open it up to the panel and say, you know, what are the really big issues that you're seeing, and what would you love transformed? And I'll open it up to you, Sean.
Thanks so much. I think that, are we talking about like in the hospitality industry in general, or current issues, or?
Sean, I'll just give you a minute to think about that while I say to all of the guests attending that we encourage you to write your questions in the box provided as well. And Sam will be answering them, and we're also going to have a Q&A session at the end.
Cool. Yeah, are we talking? I think like one of the issues, current issues at the moment, I see that is really going to affect us as an industry, and there's a lot of conversation about it at the moment, and would really love to get some kind of, see some kind of resolve. Is like the damage that that COVID and the last couple of months has done with apprentices in our industry, and in all apprentices across all industries, to be honest. I know myself coming up through the traditional apprentice ranks, what that kind of, what advantage that was for me personally. And although the system can definitely be improved, and I even watched a little Insta story the other night, I think Sunday night it was, with Luke and Mark Best having a chat, and they touched on this as well. And I think that, seeing such a drop-off rate and, apprentices losing their jobs over this period, and then, like the knock-on effect that will have in the next couple of years, especially with not being able to retain staff from overseas and the like, that's really going to have a catastrophic impact on us in the years to come. And I think that's a big issue that we could definitely throw some love into as an industry. So, yeah.
It's the COVID experience has been like an experience like no other. Well, nothing that I've ever experienced. I'm not sure that there's many other people that have experienced something of this magnitude. Is it some amazing things that I have seen come out of it, though, for some of the younger generation, was that some of them have stood up and said, well, actually, I'm going to create something here that is going to deliver food to those workers that are considered being on the front line. And there was one he might have been a teenager or an early 20-year-old kid that started up this food creation and delivery service to the hospital workers. And within the matter of a month, I think he got something like, generated $60,000 worth of investment and a lot of followers. And it was interesting to see that was born out of something where other people have had misfortune. Do you think there is there's possibility for people to create something new out of this whole experience? That's something the industry may not have even thought of, that could create a better growing platform for the apprentices.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, like a lot of innovative things have come out of this time. Obviously, when normal isn't normal, we have to think on our feet and be innovative and come up with new ideas. And I really hope so, to be honest.
Have you been able to innovate your business during this period?
Well, first of all, it's not my business, but the business that we work in, we have redirected our focus to, obviously being a catering company, all of our events have vanished virtually overnight. So like many other hospitality businesses, we reverted to, pre-prepared and home delivered meals. And that has keeps everything ticking over, and thankfully staff being able to retain our staff. But it's not the answer, I don't believe. And it's going to take some time and some figuring out, running kind of like two simultaneous businesses side by side that don't exactly complement each other, moving into, an opening up economy. But we just have to do the best that we can, really. And we're just doing it day by day at the moment and week by week. So we'll see what happens.
Right. Okay. Wow. And Luke, how's things been for your business? And do you sort of see there's an issue here for those younger apprentices involved with your business?
I think, you've got some good points there, but I do think sort of out of crisis can become good things. And without sounding harsh, I think that we've had this influx of visa people working in Australia who have taken a lot of jobs from perhaps Australians. And I think now that we're going to see a bit of a change, which is a positive. I think there's going to be a lot of jobs out there to take, and I think this is a good opportunity for young chefs or even people at school, kids at school between that age of 15 and 17, who are scratching their head and wondering what to do. Because yes, it's been a really tough time for this industry and tourism. But I think we've got to, if we can put the past behind, we are where we are. And I think if we can, as this does, and many other forums in the industry, can try and sort of motivate and educate and innovate young kids coming through, we might see more Australians and more young kids coming through our industry, and that will go through the TAFE system, which I've been lucky enough to be able to speak to government on certain things lately about the TAFE situations and how we can perhaps modernise that as well, improve it. I mean, they are doing a good job. They have done a good job, but I've after this sort of 2 months, I've sort of had this. I think we've all got this blank piece of paper now in the restaurant business, and some people started doing takeout food and pivoting is the word. So doing different things has been great, and for some people, the takeout business has worked really well. For some others, it's been it hasn't worked, and it's put them more behind the 8 ball with financial costs and debt and things like that, and labour costs. We've been very lucky with the government that have put on JobKeeper, and I think if we didn't have that, we'd probably be in a lot worse position. I've also been talking to government on hoping that we can continue that for our industry, and I'm thinking pretty much they will, because I think when JobKeeper finishes for our industry, it will be there could be a few changes. You might see a few restaurants going under. Did we have too many restaurants in the first place? Maybe were we flooded with too many restaurants and things like that. So I guess my glass is always half full, and where there is a negative, I try to find a positive, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's the thing. If I could describe the whole COVID experience, and for people that I've been working with, and for business owners that have come through and created something on the outside and kept a level mindset and performed, is that they've searched for that silver lining of the cloud. And so it's great that you're pointing to that, Luke. It sounds like you've got experience behind you where you may have fallen over in the past, but maybe you've learnt from those experiences. And
mate, if I could tell you how many times I've fallen over, wow. No, yeah, it's true. I mean, if we were sitting here 3 months ago and you would have told me an airline would have stopped, cruise ships would have stopped, hotels would have stopped, restaurants would have stopped, and trains would have stopped, and that's all part of our business, what we do. We service all them. I would have thought you were crazy. And the way I set my business up, my company, was if one fell down, as it were, a restaurant goes broke or something happens, I've got something else to fall back on. And that was always my plan. And it was a good plan until all this happened. But, it's as I said before, you can't control it. And I think the way it sort of shaped the way I'm thinking and what I'm doing moving forward has been good, and it'll be positive for me. And if I can rub that positivity off to others, it's good. I mean, we have one of the best industries in the world. We know that, and in Australia we have some of the best chefs, producers, farmers, people in the industry, sommeliers and waiters and waitresses, who are so passionate and committed and are raring to go when we all get the green light to open restaurants again in a full capacity. So the energy's there, the enthusiasm's there, but I just don't think we can go back to what we were. I think as leaders in the industry, we need to rethink what we are doing, because it's so bloody hard to make money in this business. For a young chef, a young apprentice, we all knew that when we were doing an apprenticeship, you'd never make any money anyway, but you'd learn something from it, and hopefully things would come from that. So we have a big future in this industry, but we need to nurture it. And I think we just can't go back to what we were, as I said, and we need to think what that is. And my mind's running 100 miles an hour all the time anyway. I know I've changed things in my restaurant, Luke's Kitchen, that we've just opened, where we take bookings, we make people prepay now. We've got smaller menus, where it's more cost driven, I guess, than we were. And I know when we open Glass at the Hilton, it's going to be the same. Because I want our brands, our restaurants, not just mine, all of you guys who cook and have restaurants, to be here for the long term. So I think we need to think smarter on how we produce food and make that experience for the customer as was amazing before all this, but it needs to be even more amazing now.
I totally agree. We've just got some Q&As coming in, so I'm just going to jump into some of them. Do you think that the apprenticeship model needs to change to attract this new generation? As you know, these students have been through like a schooling system that's very different to mastering an apprenticeship model. Do you think that there's a difference between like what people have been learning at school and also what the apprenticeship model is? Feel free to, if anyone wants to answer that question. That comes from Tony in New Zealand. Is there a big difference?
Good tucker in New Zealand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who created the pavlova? I think it was us, wasn't it? The Australians. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Tony, if I might jump in there, I think our apprenticeship system does need to change. I think I believe you can learn well. The TAFE system here in Australia needs to modernise. That's number one, and hopefully that will. The teachers and the people at TAFE now are fantastic. I'm not knocking them or criticising them. I think we just need to evolve it. Even speaking with Mark Best the other night, how good would it be to have someone like Mark Best in a TAFE teaching, or Peter Doyle or someone like that. So yes, I think that the TAFE system needs working on. In an apprenticeship, I think sometimes you can learn more actually on the job rather than in a school. And when I was an apprentice, I did the full 4-year apprenticeship, but I hated, and I got, I think, a D, an E, and F in all food science and all that sort of thing, but I got an A in practical. That's because I like to do things, and I like slicing and dicing, cooking and tasting. But put me behind a desk or in front of a book or something like that, I'm absolutely useless. So I think what we need to do is to understand what a person is all about. Some kids love to be educated by computers or whatever, or sit behind a read a book, and some don't. Now, when I was at school, I spent 95% of the time outside of the classroom because I was kicked out of class. So when I turned 15, they, thank God, told me to say, I think, you should probably look at something outside of school because school's not for you. And then I fell into this cooking apprenticeship, which is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if it wasn't for that teacher who picked up on me that, this kid, he doesn't want to learn, he can't sit still, he's got to be out doing something else, I don't know where I'd be. I'd be a lost cause.
Yeah. Thanks for your honesty there as well, Luke. And to see that the traditional schooling system wasn't the right avenue for you, and you listened to someone else that said, hey, why don't you try something else? And then it just opened up this whole life way this whole lifeline for you and this creative element for you that actually really suited your personality. And it's really important to really, well, first thing is actually to listen to other people. You know, I couldn't be where I am today if I didn't listen to my mentors and to the people that have helped coach me, both professionally and personally. And, you know, I've previously fallen into a trap where I've had the attitude of, I'm right, I'm going to do it my way. You know, I've got a military background as well. And, you know, it's very rigid in there and everyone's right. But it has an impact. It means that I stopped listening. And it was only over a year ago, I realised that my listening wasn't as good as what it was. And I called up my mum and I said, Mum, I want to own up to something. And she's like, what's that? And I said, well, Mum, to be honest, I haven't been listening to you for about 36 years. I said, ever since you and Dad got divorced, I blamed you and I made you wrong. And I wouldn't listen to you after that. I thought you were the hard person that caused that to happen. And so I didn't listen to you. And I just owned up to it and apologised for it. And she's like, oh, Sam, but we've had a great relationship. And I'm like, well, she actually said we've had a normal relationship and that's all normal. And I'm like, Mum, I'm not committed to normal. I'm committed to having an extraordinary relationship and a beautiful relationship where we actually listen to each other. And that day was the first day where we've actually had 2 telephone conversations in a day. And we actually wanted to talk to each other. And that's what's possible when you really own up to who you've been being and understand who you've been being. And, you know, it's great that you really listened to someone else or was guided that way, Luke. And you know, it sounds like it really changed your life.
Yeah, it did. It did. Not saying that I listen to everyone all the time now, but not to go back on what you're saying, but I think you're 100% right. I mean, you know, we as chefs, and especially when I was younger and head chef, and you know, your ego sort of overtakes everything, and you're always right, and the head chefs, you know, it's my food or the highway and all that sort of thing. I think a restaurant, to me, now is all about, it's not about the food. And this is what I try to tell young chefs and people coming through the industry. Whilst the food's important, it's not about the food. It's a restaurant is about the music, the lighting, the flowers, the wines, the staff in it, the people in it that make it hospitable. We often forget we're in the hospitality business, and we often forget that we've got to give the customer an experience so they keep coming back, wanting to come back and talk about it to others. And sometimes we just get thrown in the kitchen, the young apprentice in the corner, and he peels the potatoes or she peels the onions or whatever. And the young waitress who's just learning is, you know, polishing cutlery, and we forget about them. And I think that's over this 2-3 months as well, whilst it's always been a part of my company's sort of theory to look after people like that. But even more so when we open again, I think myself and our restaurants need to focus more on those younger people in the corner, peeling those potatoes or cleaning the cutlery, and just give them more about the restaurant, tell them more about our beautiful industry. Because how often do we see, you know, you guys have been in restaurants and things, and how often do we forget about those people who want to learn so much, but probably a little bit intimidated to ask a question?
So true. Really.
Would you say that that it's important for the culture to change moving forward?
I think the culture is changing, but it could change a lot better, you know, a lot more. I think, you know, it's probably why we started the Appetite for Excellence program, the Inspired Series program, because we as chefs and restaurateurs, and I include myself in this, we probably we haven't sold our business or what we do very well, because, you know, there's things that have happened. There's been wage scandals, blah, 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 and all that in the past. And yes, it's happened. Yes, it's not great. And you know, some chefs are out doing different things and whatever. But we, as I said before, we have one of the best industries in the world. We have something that we can do, but we don't sell it to young people well enough that they can go travel the world, meet different chefs, see different producers, winemakers, etc. So they're the things we need to do as a group better, I believe, to sell our industry. And you know, these hours, the days are gone where you would work 60, 80 hours a week as a young chef. I think that they need to go as well.
Yeah, it really resonates with me about how you're communicating about really working with the younger people in the industry and the people that are supposedly starting at the bottom rung. And it's something which got hammered into me in the army. And that was, you're only as good as your slowest man. And I was in infantry. And when you're on the front line, and if you've got a man down, that actually takes 3 other guys out.
Yeah.
And it's the same in any industry. And I say to every business owner I work with, I'm like, you're only as good as your last customer review.
Yeah, 100%.
And you only perform as well.
It's like going to a theatre, isn't it, or a live play or musical. You know, that's, if that experience is amazing, you're going to tell most people and remember it. But when you get that bad experience, it's not great, is it?
That's correct. And it's the same for like the internal team. And I'd love to hear Laura's point of view on this, and being the youngest member on the panel. You know, what would you like to see? You know, we're hearing here from some of the great elders in the industry about how they want to focus on...
I'm not that old. I haven't had hair and makeup done, I know, today, but
I've had my hair done, so it's all good. Well, you look very pretty anyway, Sean. Sorry, Luke. So
well,
Laura,
you just got Sam up there still. I'm still Sam.
I've just replicated myself. So Laura, I'd love to hear your point of view about, you know, being one of the younger professionals in the ranks. You know, how would like an incredible experience look from your point of view? What types of things would need to be offered to you, or how would the training look? You know, Elke's mentioned on the Q&A that you'd love to see training revolve around the seasons and the senses we all use every day in the kitchens to create. Does that resonate with you, or does something else from your background really resonate with you as to what you can see to really make it more attractive for the younger apprentices to come in and say, actually, this is an amazing industry. I want to spend my life in here?
For me, I think what was missing in my apprenticeship, I was the only person in my class. I went to TAFE in Southwest Sydney, and I was the only person in my class that worked in the city at the time. Everyone else was working in pubs and clubs, local, sort of doing really quite like standard hours. You know, no one was working the 60, 70 that I was, and no one was really sort of pushing like I was. And I felt like I was sort of on my own and sort of fighting against like a wall that wasn't really there. And then I had to sort of push for all these opportunities. I had to constantly go, what can I do next? And where can I go from here? And there was always this question of like, okay, what's next for me? And that kind of made me feel a little bit alienated, because none of the people in my class were doing that. Everyone in my class was sort of happy to cruise along, and, you know, a lot of my class aren't chefs anymore. You know, whereas for me, I went to London and I spent 3 years over there, just sort of pushing and working, you know, 90 hours a week and being crazy. But I always remember that there was this one girl I worked with as an apprentice, and she went to a TAFE in the city. And she was talking about how she had this opportunity to get work experience in all these other kitchens for women, for apprentices, for, you know, all other walks of life. And she was a mature age apprentice as well, and she had more opportunity again. And it was just sort of like, just because you're a female, you get this opportunity, and because you go to this TAFE, you get this opportunity. Whereas, you know, I didn't really get that. If I had someone like Elke or Luke, Sean, yourself say, hey, I'm opening rotations, you know, apply. You can do 1 day a week in my kitchen. That for me is something I'd be super interested in, and just to open that opportunity to see what else is out there as well.
Okay. And Sean, what do you think about this around the younger apprentices? And you've actually started this whole conversation around younger apprentices.
Yeah, I mean, like, I loved my apprenticeship. Like, I really enjoyed I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it these days, but, you know, I really enjoyed, you know, going to work most of the time and doing 1 day a week at school. And, you know, I even thought back in those days, some of the stuff we were learning was, you know, a little bit kind of old fashioned, say, or, you know, how relevant is it these days? But I mean, it's also important to learn those, you know, really fundamental skills at the same time. So I think that when Luke says that we could definitely do with some innovation and a bit of overhaul in that sense, yeah, I mean, there's obviously we can bring it up to kind of a modern age, but I guess you want those fundamentals to still be there at the same time.
Yeah, I agree very much on it. You need those foundations there. You know, I think in any cooking, and sorry to cut you off, Sean, but you know, like French cooking, like that was my foundation. That's what I learned. That's how I've managed to carry on in cooking. So, you know, back in TAFE and doing an apprenticeship, I think, you know, the basics of a mayonnaise, a hollandaise, and all those beautiful sauces, and a demi-glace and things like that, they need to stay. But we need to, you know, we do need to improvise as well. And I think back when I did my apprenticeship, that wasn't there as well. Carry on, Sean. I took the floor off you there.
No. I think you pretty much just wrapped it up, to be fair.
Good. Tony Heptonstall over in New Zealand commented that in New Zealand, the government has made all apprenticeships free for the next few years in a bid to encourage young people into the industry.
Smart move.
Yeah,
it is. It's well, you know, yeah. I mean, there's so many options out there for young people, and I think it just goes back to what we should be doing as leaders and selling the industry better. And I think once the industry is sold better, not as a, you know, perhaps a Gordon Ramsay on television or whatever it may be. I mean, I think I don't watch a lot of reality cooking shows now, but the things I have seen on MasterChef now, I think perhaps 10, 15 years ago, were they good for our industry? Because I always worried that it glamorized our industry too much. And we found that when young kids were coming into the kitchen, they wanted to skip or not do the peeling of the potatoes or the diced onions or take the rubbish out, things like that. They wanted to be doing cookbooks and they wanted to be on TV and things like that. But they forgot about that they needed to learn the basics first. And because it comes back to Sean, you know, the TAFE, an apprenticeship, is learning a foundation. And that's what we need to educate as well to young kids at schools. And that's what we do with the Inspired series. And what I've been doing is going around, well, before COVID and now on the Instagram, is talking to people like Peter Gilmore, Guy Grossies and Mark Bess and people like that, how they started, why they started, and about their ups and downs, because we all go through downs. We all read about the good upsides, but you probably don't hear about all the downsides. And how many times people wanted to throw in cooking and things, you know, because it got too hard. But when it does get bad, you know, you need to soldier on. And I mean that, you know, you've got to communicate and talk, but also there's always ups and downs, and we hear about all the good stuff all the time.
Yeah, that's correct. And it really is, it boils down to a communication exercise. Business is actually just a communication exercise. That's all it is. And what we do is...
We're not great communicators though, are we?
Some people.
Some chefs. No, some people. Some chefs have got that old school. It's all that discipline and stuff like that. And some young people are scared to go up and talk to their boss because of that. And that can be a real problem. And I think, if it's got to be opened up and relaxed environment for people to come up and do that. I know I was shit scared of my boss as an apprentice, and I couldn't talk to him about anything.
Yep. So we see that as one of the biggest issues, first of all, before we can create what we see inside our heads. So in terms of a personal transformation side of things, and the way I explain it is that if a property developer is looking to build like a 10-story building on a block, they purchase a block with like a 2-story house on it, but they want to build a 10-story building. Now that's their vision. But they can't build that 10-story building until they demolish that 2-story house so they can build the proper foundations. And that's what happens inside of every business I've ever worked in. And it works in all relationships as well. You cannot create on top of something else. It's called doing something half-baked. The foundations aren't there that are correct. And we're going to give you some insights into one of our lessons. And it's actually called Getting a Fresh Mindset. And this is what people do when monks meditate for years and years and years, and they've got a blank mind. Because when you've got a blank mind, you can create. But if you've got all these thoughts and feelings running around inside your head, you're not listening properly. You're actually listening to those thoughts and feelings inside your head rather than what someone's trying to say to you. So we've actually got an exercise that actually cleans out all those thoughts and feelings and leaves it in the past and creates a safe space for you to say whatever is there for you. And that's powerful. The problem is there's 2 types of worlds that people are living in. You're either surviving or you're creating. You're either surviving the communication that comes at you, and that's when you're withholding communication, for example, or you're manipulating, or you're avoiding, or you're trying to force an outcome. And there's a whole list of other things that I'm listening for, and other people I know that are inside the white jacket effect. We're listening for these types of communication, and it means they're surviving the world that comes at them. And we're listening much deeper than the words that they're saying. And we can say, look, is there something else underneath that? You might have heard the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. And it's just one word that you say to someone and they go off like a rocket. When you're in a personal relationship, if you say that one word to your partner, they go off. And it's just one word. And that's what happens in these business environments and in the kitchen. That people they're at their tether, they're worn out, they've got a lot on their backs, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of time pressure, and there's a lot of pressure around quality and service standards. And when they're not met, or when something's a little bit out of shape, they'll go off like a rocket. And they're just venting out that pressure. So what needs to be put in place is a structure for people to actually reduce the amount of stress that they're under, so that when something does happen that's abnormal, they can deal with it not with a normal tone of voice and say, okay, look, I get there's been a breakdown. What are we going to do about it? Rather than, you idiot, why did you do that? And firstly, to create a safe space of communication, you need to be open to not resisting any of the communication that comes at you. You need to be able to be with any communication. And then it's about communicating to the person that you're with and saying, hey, look, this is a safe space for you to communicate whatever you want to say. And whatever you want to say, just stays between you and me. We have a whole lesson on gossip. Gossip doesn't work because when you talk about someone else behind their back, you shift someone else's listening of that person. You actually shift their listening. Like, I've never met Donald Trump, but all the media out there in the world has shifted my listening of him. I've heard little bits of him, and that's where I'll create my vision of him. But that's why we have a foundation that says, look, if you don't gossip, it just doesn't work. If you've got an issue with someone, then you need to clean it up with that person. Otherwise, if you go talking about people behind their back, it shifts their listening and their experience. In their experience, everyone's got a different perspective of someone. That's just how it is. So coming back to creating a safe space, we say that, to all the managers out there and the founders of the businesses, create this safe space for people to come and tell you and guide you, what's working and what's not working. And they're there to help. Like when Luke found out when he was younger that he just wasn't suitable for the standard schooling system. And let people open up and just hear what they have to say. The biggest problem on the planet is that people don't feel heard. People don't feel heard. But when they feel heard, that's when your relationships come much closer together and you can start operating as a team. And you know as well as I do, in restaurants, it's not one person that can make all the meals and set all the tables and order all the food and deal with all the customers. It's teamwork. And that's why when that team really works together cohesively and trusts each other, that's when extraordinary results get produced.
Absolutely.
So Sean, have you had experience with this type of a team really performing well?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you're talking about is something that we've really worked on for years and years in our current business, and is really a true part of our core values. Is that I think that above all, there needs to be respect for everybody who all work across the board, all of your work colleagues. I think where that kind of the communication needs to be clear from the get-go, and then there also with that communication needs to be kind of you need to outlay expectations for everyone so everyone knows where they stand. So, at the end of the day, if someone isn't performing to the standard that's already been clearly communicated, then you just have a chat about it. But it doesn't really, there shouldn't really be a necessity for anyone to kind of lose their temper or, get angry or frustrated or deal with situations in that kind of way, because everything's kind of laid out for you. And yeah, respect for each other. And, we've been very lucky. We've got a small team, a tight team. We've all been together for a long time. And we all really work together very well. So in that regard, I feel very lucky and blessed that I work in an open, together and cohesive work environment where we can just get shit done, and it's easy. So, but it takes work, it doesn't happen overnight. And when you get it right, it's very, it's very, we feel very proud. We all love coming to work together at the end of the day, so.
Great. Yeah. That's really great to hear. Sorry, Amber.
I was just going to ask Sean, does he think that if there was a module in TAFE about communication and respect, that would have helped with what he's talking about in his business?
Absolutely. And I think even when I did my apprenticeship, there was theory classes on communication and teamwork and stuff like that. But that was 20 years ago. So, I'm sure that there could be some revisions and some updates made to that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure I remember doing those classes. I remember we had to teach each other how to juggle oranges, whether how related that is to cooking. It's not, but it's teamwork and communicating, and you know what I mean, and not getting frustrated when you drop all oranges on the floor. So yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate that not very many people have experienced such a wonderful kitchen like yours is. I know firsthand that it's a wonderful team, almost like a family. But there are many kitchens out there that aren't like that.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, but I think, you know, like the old school, you know, training that we all know was rife in our industry, you know, 20 years ago or 15. Like, I mean, whatever the timeline, it's phasing out year by year, and it's being replaced with some really professional, education-based, you know, respectful work environments. And, you know, a lot of people will not, I mean, I won't stand for it. And I know a lot of my colleagues won't stand for it. You get the odd person who wants to throw a temper tantrum every now and again, but like, it's just not really on, you know, like we're not children, we're adults, and it's not acceptable in any other industry. So why should it be acceptable in ours?
Well said.
Sometimes I act like a child, Sean. I do.
We all can. We're all capable.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, there's a thing called inner child work, and there's these experiences that we have as a child that we actually, unless we do the inner child work, we don't transform it. It grows with us as an adult, and that's why we see adults behaving like children. And I'm happy to own up to that I act like a child sometimes, but I know how to look at it. And one of the things is that we're all human, and we're meaning-making machines. We all react. And what can be done if you do react is it's actually not the end of the world. It's actually can be considered as a beautiful learning experience. And if you stand in that position after you've had a reaction or someone's had a reaction to you, then you can develop a beautiful, an actual closer relationship after there's been a breakdown. And I love the saying, you've got to go through a breakdown to have a breakthrough. Now, one thing I had to do, like you might have got from my example of where I talked to my mum, is that I had to own up to my way of being. I had to own up to my mum about me not listening to her. And I just had to keep the finger pointed at me. There's a saying that we love in the white jacket effect, that if someone points the finger, then there's three fingers pointing straight back at you. Those three right there. And I've got to, you know, how would you know what the taste of a banana is if you hadn't have tasted the banana? So how would you know what an arsehole is if you're not an arsehole yourself? So this is where the personal development starts to happen. And if you do have a breakdown and if someone gets angry, then there's an opportunity for them to own up to that person and be vulnerable and also courageous and apologise and say, look, I really apologise for reacting like that. You know, I was a real jerk. And I'm not committed to being that way. And I just want to apologise, and can you forgive me? And that gives the other person the opportunity to forgive the person that had the reaction at them and choose if they want to continue the relationship. And if they say yes, you know, every time I've owned up to it, the person's just come back and said, look, well, that's fine. Look, thanks for owning up to it. Like, I have my reactions as well. And then we laugh, and our relationship's much deeper because we can actually talk about the deeper things and about our humanness and about where we're not committed to being that type of person. And we're human, we have reactions. And, you know, I find that part of my life is so much more rich because I have deeper relationships with people and I can talk about those deeper things that are on my mind. And everyone's got that, people can see my blind spots. And that's another thing that we talk about in the White Jacket course is there's this zone that's called the zone that you know. So I know everyone here knows about being a chef and being in the hospitality industry. And Laura knows about living and working in London. And then there's a zone outside of that called the don't know zone. But you know that you don't know it. So we all know that we don't know about brain surgery. We all know that we don't know about flying to the moon. But that's what we know that we don't know about. And then there's this whole other area. It's in our blind spot. It's called the don't know zone. You can't even think about it. Because if you think about it, it falls inside the you know that you don't know. And this is where other people can help guide you in that don't know zone. They'll say, hey, you're actually a real jerk then. And in their point of view, you're being a jerk. And that's from their point of view. And until you can really kind of take that communication and say, wow, you know, I had no idea that I was being a jerk. And like, it's embarrassing. You know, I'm ashamed to be a jerk. And that's when you're just being so authentic about it. And you say, look, I'm not committed to being that way. How could I not be that way? And that's how you can really grow together. And it's through, you know, what I love about the hospitality industry is the teams really work together so much more closer than any other industry because you've got that time and that pressure and the standards are so high. And, you know, it really can create a family that doesn't leave you if you've got those bonds right, if you've got that openness. And there's people in there in that team that will support you for life. And that's something really beautiful when you work in a high pressure environment. I found it in child protection when I was there. You know, I came in as a parent to these children that I was looking after. And when you build that space of safety, so you can learn from each other and love each other for life. I know I'm committed to all of the relationships that I'm in my life. I'm committed to people for life. Why wouldn't I not? And people are a contribution to me and I'm a contribution to them. And that's what's possible here in this industry. So Laura, have you ever, being a younger person coming through the industry, have you experienced that type of family in the businesses that you've worked in?
Unfortunately, I've only sort of ever experienced that family feeling with like one or two colleagues at the time. I wouldn't say as a whole team. Unfortunately for me, it's been mostly the reverse. It's been, I walk into a kitchen and people go, young, female, not worth our time, which is kind of soul destroying because you're already sort of written off. People don't even give you a chance. Whereas I actually worked for one chef who was like, young, female, yes, get her in here. Like, that's what I want, you know? Like, and it just baffles me that even exists. You know, you should be encouraging young people regardless of gender. And it's just like, why are we picking and choosing? Why aren't we giving people an opportunity to bring something to the table that we've never thought of? Just give people the chance, you know? But before you look at someone's resume and you go, oh yeah, they've worked there, they're already going to be like this, you know? We pigeonhole people like profoundly. And it's just, it's really, really disheartening because unfortunately for me, I've been on the other side of it more often than not. And I'm sort of yet to experience a leader and a team.
How can you prove it wrong? If that's your take on it, if you think that happens, which it shouldn't, and you say it does, so how can you change it? How can you change that person's mind?
In terms of in kitchens before, where people are like, I've worked for sous chefs who go, she's young, she's a girl, I'm not really going to listen.
Prove them wrong. Can you prove them wrong somehow?
Yeah, you can. It takes a lot of hard work. Some people at the end of the day don't want to, and I've worked for sous chefs who just go, from the day I start to the day I leave, they're like, cool, thanks for your hard work, see you later, and just dismiss you completely. But then I've also worked for people that I've had to work 10 times harder than other people in the kitchen, and I've had to work, you know, my complete butt off, and I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever. And obviously that's still happening in the industry. And I speak as well from most of my experience being in London as well. So I'm hoping that Sydney and Australia as a whole is a little bit different. But my experience basically is sort of like, I have to work and work and work and work to chip away at people who beside me are doing like quite physically half the work and getting a big pat on the back. And I'm sort of like always pushing and always fighting. And I enjoy that. That's who I am as a person. I'm always going to fight. I'm always going to push and learn for myself as well. But I feel like there's sort of that wall from the beginning that I've got to break through that other people maybe wouldn't in the same situation. Does that answer your question?
I'm sorry to hear that. That's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Really
it's
tough.
a shame it happens, but there's you've just, I think your attitude towards it is great, but I think I don't know, I'm no I'm not someone to give advice on this, but I'm you sound quite determined, which is great, and I think your determination will get you through, and hopefully with your determination that will change people's minds about what they think of a young girl coming through in a kitchen, because you sound like you're a better person than them already, but you want that better part to come off on them.
Yeah, of course. And even myself, I've seen already that is changing slowly. I do believe that it's changing. Obviously, it's going to take time, but it is happening, and there are people out there. And if I can help change one person's perspective on young females or whatever my typecast is, then it's already a win for me.
Absolutely.
That's correct. That really points me to, I focus a lot on results. And what I say to everyone is that, you'll see a vision in the future of what your results look like, of how something should be, or something that you want to get. And you'll get a picture of it in your mind. And I say, if you think you know how to get there, think again. Because if you knew how to get there, you would have already got it. You would have already got there, or you would have already got the result. So what you've actually got is a best guess as to how to get that result, because it's something that you've never achieved before. It's a result you've never got. So, of course, you don't know how to get it. Let's get authentic with it. You don't know how to get it. And what Laura's pointing to is that when she has a suggestion, that's coming from her point of view, and that might actually be the answer that someone doesn't know. Because if you're a manager or a founder of a business, you're looking for results in the future, or you're looking to lift the standard, then if you're looking to get a result you haven't got, you actually don't know how to get it. You've actually got to be open to someone else guiding you and providing some beautiful insight. And if everyone could take that on, then those chefs or those people that are diminishing someone else's point of view, then just consider that you may actually be stopping yourself from achieving certain results. Just because Laura's younger, that doesn't mean that she can't see the way how to get that result. She may have been able to achieve a higher standard. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. it's just being open to it. Because everyone's right with their point of view. And if everyone's right, how can anyone be wrong? So I'd love to be able to assist in transforming the industry, and some of those people that aren't open to different ways of doing things. And it really points to what Luke was talking about right at the start of this webinar about we're in this big place of change, and we've been seriously shook up by COVID. And what needs to be done is there needs to be some new things created. We've actually been given a beautiful opportunity to create some new things.
Yeah, Laura, and you can do that too.
I'm all for it.
But are you working now, Laura?
I'm not at the moment. No, I'm
obviously no. Where were you last?
Over in London at a restaurant called Brat.
Okay, cool. So you're back in Sydney, and you're hopefully going to get a job cooking again.
That is the plan.
Great. Well, blank sheet of paper.
Yeah.
You can go on and change things. It's good.
It is good. It's quite a powerful position to be in as well. And it's good. Like COVID's almost been like a bit of a blessing in disguise, because now we've got this sort of clean slate, blank piece of paper. We can sort of start again. That might be good, it might be bad, but hopefully we get to write our own story and make it a good one.
That's right.
Yeah. And to give you a hand with that, consider that there's a certain type of no that you can't be with. This is all in communication. This is what prevents everyone from taking courageous steps. But when we're making a request or a demand of someone else, we're actually really concerned about a certain type of no that comes at us. It actually shuts us down. So our brain will stop ourselves from actually communicating something, a request or a demand, because we're so afraid of this particular type of no coming back to us that we'll go like, oh my God, they just said that no to us, and it shuts us down completely. So I'd like everyone to have a think about, everyone that's just listening in, have a think about what's that particular type of no that you can't be with. It might be a hard and fast, sharp no, a really stern no. Or it might be like I don't know about that, like, I might get back to you. They're completely different types of no's. And there'll be a certain no, and everyone's different. There'll be a certain no that you're avoiding. You don't want to be with that type of no because you'll react. And consider that if you can stretch into that, have some courageous step and actually make the request that you want. Maybe I want this job, or I want to create this. And just be self-aware that maybe that particular no might come back to you, and that's okay. All you need to do is just say, look, okay, I got it. And that's the first step, is just to have that courage and go, okay, there's a particular type of no that I'll react to. It works for business owners, it works for managers, it works for apprentices. We're all human, so we all have this thing. So that might help you on your way to making some really bold requests, Laura, of the places that you might find have got the most beautiful testimonials, that staff are really happy, they're creating the types of food that you want to create. Reach out. See if you can have those conversations with the right people and say, hey, I'd love to work here, or I'd love to create this. And everyone can do it. Everyone can pull in other team. This is a beautiful opportunity to get new team members on your team that have got a lot of potential. And that can take your business to a whole nother level. Now look at Michael Jordan when he joined the Chicago Bulls. He transformed that team because he was committed to being the best basketball player on the planet. And he was committed to having his teammates, but team players being the best as well. There's the Michael Jordan and other high profile, well, maybe not high profile people, but people that have got that determination. And they'll always look for that silver lining. Bring them into your business, and your business will go really well, especially as we come out of COVID.
I'm pretty sure there's an argument that Michael Jordan bullied half the team into being so great, but I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's true. And I saw the documentary, and he also said that, you know, he was committed to them. He wouldn't make any request of anyone for something that he hadn't done himself.
Yeah, that is inspirational.
Yeah. So I might just checking out the time. Where's the time? 5:15. Has anyone got any comments to say on that, first of all? Has any thoughts come in that you want to communicate? So is anything opening up for anyone here?
I think, like, just touching on, I mean, I think it's really unfortunate that, you know, anyone gets judged for their age or their sex or their sexual orientation or their race, or, you know, like, but, you know, we all know that as humans, we have our own, people have prejudices, people, you know, they judge books by the cover, you know, like I'm reading a book at the moment on this topic, and, you know, they're talking about people who play instruments in the orchestra, and how, you know, for such a long time, very similar to the hospitality industry, it was so stereotyped that males had to play these instruments and females had to play these instruments because that's how you would get the best sound. And, you know, it was only up until recently that now anyone trying out for a particular instrument for a particular orchestra, it's all behind the screen and you can't see who they are. So you can't make a judgment on whether they're male or female or suited, you know, whatever orientation, whether they're suited for the right job or not. And I think that if we took a feather out of that hat and just kind of, you know, like, you don't know what skills someone has by just looking at them and even getting them in for a 4-hour trial. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really kind of need to get inside people's heads and understand what drives them and what their interests are and what they're good at and what they're not so good at, so you can either help develop them or play to their strengths, or, you know. So I guess if we all kind of like, and it takes time, it's difficult when you're running, you know, Luke, you're running a massive business, you know, with several outlets, and how do you know all of your staff intimately at the one time? You know, it's almost impossible. So I guess that's, you know, in your instance, you need good leaders and good, you know, people in senior positions that have those kind of skills that can, you know, that can get the best out of people, you know, and you know, who can be in charge of training responsibly and making sure that there's good culture and, you know, good values and stuff like that. But I mean, it kind of starts from the ground up, I guess. You know, you've kind of...
Well, what did Marco Pierre White say? Fish rots from the head.
That's exactly right.
From the top, you know,
exactly right.
The leader has to, filter it down to the people below. And that's it's easy said, but yeah, it's an important step.
But yeah, breaking down that stigma, you know, and, you know, that's one thing I actually love about this industry is how diverse it is, you know, how multicultural it is, you know, like I've had opportunities to go and travel to different cities in the world, and, you know, you experience new culture, new cuisine, new people, like, and that's really what this industry is about. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about everything being, you know, it's not about like white man in a kitchen. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about diversity. Like, I enjoy that. That's what I get out of it. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think we're too far off. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're too far off. I hope we can change things so that people like yourself, Laura, don't experience this kind of thing in our industry in the future. You know.
Okay. I think that's, you know, we've got, what I can see here is we've really got some, you know, forward-thinking, you know, panelists here, you know, from different generations, and it really does sound like the communication is going throughout the industry that, certain types of behaviours aren't on anymore. And if you are subject to these types of behaviours, then there need to be some conversations around that type of behaviour doesn't work. You know, even the white jacket effect, you know, we've been subject to harassment recently, and there's breaches of the Privacy Act, and we're having to have conversations with those people directly to say, hey, there's some boundaries here, and that type of communication is not on. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for creating trust and connection and creating things together. There's enough for everyone here, and we can all work together. And there's boundaries to that. There's guidelines. It's like there's rules of the road. And you know, when you get a car license, if you don't follow those rules of the road, then you know you might overstay on your parking spot, and you'll get a fine from the police or the council, and they'll say you broke that rule. You can't do that. But then if you drive down a one-way road the wrong way, you know, there's a rule against that, and it may cause a really serious accident. And so what there is there's certain rules that maybe need to be made clearer for moving forward with, kind of like a car, the rules of the road. What are the rules of the hospitality industry? And doing it that way is like going down the one-way street the wrong way. It can result in a serious incident. If you go over here and you travel this way, then that's the flow of the traffic. And it really does sound like everyone's really open to looking at what these rules are. And there's lots of communication going around, and I think that's why, you know, everyone's here on this panel to say, hey, look, you know, we want to contribute to what we've experienced works. So I'm really interested in knowing, before we jump into some of the questions from everyone that's listening in, you know, for the people on the panel, what would be one or two, say, rules of the industry that you can see that work?
Give us an example.
That if someone says that you're a jerk or an arsehole, that you accept it like a man or a woman. And you take it on the chin and you say, look, I apologise for being that way to you, and I'm actually not committed to being that way to you. Can you help me not be that way? Speechless. Oh, you're on mute, Luke.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think you've just got to. I think it goes back to the industry, how it has been in the past, and how things like this and Inspired series and Appetite for Excellence program, we've got that mentorship and it's just, I guess what we said at the beginning and where this is all ending up is communication. It's how we communicate to make things better. And Laura, what you know, whenever that new job comes about and that new position, you've got to, you are strong and you're determined. You need to communicate that through, so it filters through. I mean, I love nothing better than with my team, and I've got this, I call her the best pastry chef in Australia, Natalie. Natalie's worked with me for 6 or 7 years, and she's only, I think she's only 30. But she'll put up a dessert, and the most thrilling thing for me is to say, you know, okay, maybe we can do this, or this, and then we get in a few other chefs, and we talk about it, and you know, and Natalie loves that feedback, and we all come up, we've all had some input on that one dessert. It's not just Natalie's, or it's not just mine, or whatever. And it's that whole team thing of communication and talking about it. And then also making those other chefs or apprentices, even if an apprentice has an opinion on it, they actually feel as though they're part of creating that dessert. They're part of that big team thing.
Yeah.
And that's all comes back to communication. And that's something that I would never have done 10, 15 years ago. But, you know, as staff turnover used to go, you know, staff would keep walking out the door and whatever. I taught myself that in a way, you know, that I have great people. I have better chefs working under me than I am myself. And without them, I wouldn't be where I am now. So you as young people, you need to speak up, I think, and that's really important.
That's beautiful. That's really cool. Okay. Sean, what would you say?
What rules could we introduce? Is that kind of the question, or
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, there could just be like, you know, like a don't be a douchebag rule. Do you know what I mean? Like, it could just be
a swear jar or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, don't be a douchebag. Don't, you know, harass people. Don't be, you know, sexist, racist. You know, like, just, you know, it's like sometimes you've got to break it down and be really simple. You know, like, what's the message that hangs on the wall in 11 Madison Park? Is make it nice, you know, like, and it's a really beautiful rule to kind of live by. Like, if the thing that you're doing right now isn't nice, well, then you shouldn't be here. So, like, you know, if you can't be nice to people and get along and work together collaboratively in a professional atmosphere, then you shouldn't be here, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, the industry doesn't need you. So yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'm all for simple solutions. So
simple is good.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to cooking food, simple is good.
That's exactly right.
I agree. I totally agree. So what we've had so far is we've had make it for everyone from Luke, and make it open for everyone to communicate and give their point of view. And then we've also had be nice. Now, Laura, what would you like to add to this?
You took the two good ones.
That's why you got to go first.
I know. I guess as well, it's good to communicate, but it's more important that the communication is taken on board and you've actually been listened to and you've been heard. And to feel heard is, you know, it's great that chef comes up to me and says, Laura, what do you think? And then you say your opinion. That's great. But if they don't take it on board, then it's kind of useless. It's almost like pat on the back, like we gave you an inch, you know, like it can be a little bit sort of like patronizing. So I think really just, you know, if I was to go to my boss or have someone come to me and say, Laura, this isn't working for me, or, you know, I'm not happy with how my section's running, or, you know, whatever the situation is, just for them to, and for myself to feel heard.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. We've had some offers from Tony in New Zealand. He said sitting down and eating together without phones.
Yeah.
Which is great. Thanks, Tony. And Elkie has suggested you could name and shame the old school ways. And yeah, really, that can bring it to the front of everyone's thoughts to say, hey, these are the ways that were taught in the past, and we now know that they don't work. So to maybe to highlight those, that sometimes those, and Elkie's just said here, treat people how you would like to be treated yourself. And is there anything else from you, Amber? Any other rules that you think would be great to add to the industry as a foundational rule?
I thought that was beautiful that Laura topped that off with the listening and making people feel heard. I think we could learn how to just see the facts. Often in the kitchen, things happen, it's hot, it's fast paced, something happens, and you make up a story in your head. Let's take an example. Someone hits you on the back, taps you on the back. You could think, oh, sorry, where am I going with this? You could think that they don't like you. You could think that they do like you, or you could think that they thought that what you did wasn't the right thing. My point is, just from someone tapping you on the back, your mind can make up so many different stories, and those stories can really affect you when you go home from work, or affect your relationship with that person, and they could really spiral into something that they're not. So a rule that I think going forward would be to stick to the facts, and if you have any doubts about something that happened, then ask the person yourself, so that you can be clear on the matter without making up stories.
That's a good one. I think also with things like that, what we often forget, and what I try and tell myself when I see a situation that's not going well, is you've got to think and got to remember that we've all got shit going on in our lives. We've all got issues. We've all got money issues, or stress at home, or stress at work, or whatever. And we all don't know what that is. But if I keep telling myself, okay, you know, he or she is just like you. You've got shit at home, so let's think about how we can make it better. I do that a lot, and I find it works. But the minute I drift off and forget that people have got issues, like I've got issues, because everyone must think, you know, or who's a really high-profile chef? Let's say Daniel Humm from 11 Madison. You know, everyone would think he's got the world's at his feet, and you know, he's got everything going for him, and blah blah blah. But I've met him, I've spoken to him, and he's got same issues I've got, you know, and I'm not going to go into those issues, but that's, you wouldn't think. Sometimes we look at people and think, wow, they couldn't have a problem in the world. They must have so much money, or he's got 25 restaurants or whatever. But, you know, those sort of people have all got issues. So if we can think like that, I think that's important.
That's correct. That's correct. That's beautiful. That really sums up, you know, a way to be is, when I get the time's 5:29 with communicate, we finish at 5:30, that when people react, they've made it mean something about themselves. But when you remove yourself from the equation and think, how can I be of service to this person? How can I assist this person? How can I listen to this person and hear what they have to say? It makes a huge difference, a massive difference, because you'll take yourself out of the equation. And I've found that everyone that I've worked with, when they start taking themselves out of the equation, the results they want just start happening. Yes, there's some other foundations that can be put in place that need to be corrected, like integrity and acknowledgement and judgment and understanding what's story and what are the facts, and, you know, how to clean up things as well. But once you take yourself out of the equation and you be of service to someone else, which is what this industry is all about, being of service, then amazing results happen. Amazing results happen.
Totally.
So I'm amazed that it's 5:30 already, and I feel that there's just so much here to talk about, and, you know, the information that Luke and Sean and Laura and also Amber have really put on the table here. It's helped shape a vision for the hospitality industry of the future and what we're aiming towards. And it really sounds like we're all aiming towards the same thing. We've got the end result in mind. We want these cohesive teams that really work together and support each other and trust each other and hear each other. And they're nice to each other and they're open to collaboration and points of view. So I think we've all got the same vision going on. And now it's about, okay, what are the steps that we need to take to get there and to make it happen as fast as possible? So I'd like to personally thank Luke and Laura and Sean for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
You've got very, very busy lives. You've got a lot going on, and for you to take an hour out of your day, hour and a half out of your day, and also you, Amber, to contribute to the industry and to share your points of view, and so we can share with other people to then go and share it with other people. We start a ripple effect. And we're all committed to, and thanks for your commitment to make the industry a better place. And that means that the people out there that we're serving have a much better experience and they're happy to spend their money. And it all just moves around like clockwork. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and also for your comments.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much also from me. It's really wonderful having all of your stories and your contribution. I'd also like to acknowledge all the people that have attended today. It's wonderful to have people committed to a brighter future in this industry. So thank you very much.
And thank you to our international people, Tony, over in New Zealand for joining in and for really bridging the gap between the different countries in the world. So thank you. And yeah, wonderful. So if anyone else has got anything to say, or they've got any comments or anything that we haven't closed off, then please contact us in the Facebook group or send us an email and we'll have a conversation with you. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you all.
And, nice to meet you too.
See you in the future. Take care. If you need anything, reach out.
Have a lovely evening.